Greetings, adventurers! Welcome to another episode of the Paranormal Industrial Complex. My name is Dallas Deluxe, and today, my friends, oh baby, have I got a tale for you. I'm going to take you back to the high Baroque era of the Cold War and tell you a high Baroque tale of some crazy goings on. Yes, sirree, I'm talking about the one and the only, the East Coast extravaganza, the Montauk Project. Let's get into it. 1992, author Preston Nichols releases a book called The Montauk Project, blowing the doors wide open on a project that he worked on in the 70s and 80s at what's now Camp Hero, which is at a recommissioned Air Force base. Now, on the Montauk Point at the end of Long Island. Now, I'm going to get across this road here. Getting run over. Now, here's the thing. He was hired on ostensibly to work on a project, would be a sort of a computer interface project. In other words, there would be a way for the human brain to interface directly with a computer. He figured out pretty much very quickly that it was not so much about the mind controlling something as it was about mind control, aka Project Ultra, MK Ultra, the government secret mind control program that began in the 1950s and 60s. Allegedly responsible for such assassins as Sirhan, possibly Mark David Chapman, Charles Manson, and almost definitely Candy Jones. Oh, more on that later. Now, like any project that's well-funded and has a lot of power behind it, things were going well. They were doing experiments on mind control. The whole idea was to be able to press a button and induce a schizophrenic state in the enemy. And they allegedly tested it on the citizens of the town of Montauk. And would drive them all crazy for a couple hours at a time. And things went on for a while. Now, this is powered largely with electromagnetism. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, electromagnetism, and you're thinking to yourself, East Coast military bases, you may be thinking about Project Rainbow, which actually went by its more famous name, the Philadelphia Experiment, aka the Navy's attempt to cloak a ship into radar in 1943 that ended up teleporting the ship about 200 miles away. Now, we're going to get into that in another episode because that's a big tale. But here's the thing. As this experiment went on, it became obvious that the powers of electromagnetism were far beyond what were originally imagined. When you harness that much power, you have to understand, you can affect not only people's brains, you can start to affect the shimmery tendrils that hold together space and time. In other words, they were able to create a tunnel. This is what he claims, where you could travel in both space and time. Allegedly, he used it to travel backwards in time, 2,000 years, the time of Christ, and forwards in time, about 6,000 years, and go to Mars. His claim, not mine. Wherein he would retrieve artifacts, things like that. And there was a lot of people working on the project. They would send a lot of people through there. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, hang on a second. You know, you're not going to just develop something like that and be successful on the first go, okay? A time tunnel to Mars is not something you can build in your backyard, especially not on the first try. And you can't just send like a camera through there or sensors. You got to send a man, okay? You got to send a person through there to see what's going on, to see if it works. What's the point of sending a pencil back in time? You want to send a man back in time. So they did. But who in this world is going to go through an untested time tunnel not knowing where you're going to lead? Now, I would, but that's just me. But nobody in their right mind would do it. So they got people who were out of their minds, people who were expendable, people who nobody would notice if they were gone. Homeless people, drug addicts, mentally ill. All of them were conscripted and sent through the time tunnels to who knows where. Sometimes they came back, sometimes they didn't. And they ran out of people like that. They started kidnapping kids, taking kids off the street. First would be the kids that nobody notices. Same thing, runaways, people with crazy parents, kids living on the street, whoever. Allegedly, they were taken to this base, and then they were broken down psychologically, MK Ultra style, basically tortured until they would do anything their captors wanted. So in other words, they would be sent through the time tunnels. And they would end up who knows where. Now, at the beginning of that situation, sometimes those coordinates were not exactly spot on, if you know what I mean. And the kids were just left to fend for themselves. Mentally ill, alone, and trapped in time. Not a good combination, my friends. Not a good combination. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, hey, hang on there, Double D, this sounds like something out of Stranger Things. Well, you're right. Guess what? What's the original title of Stranger Things? Montauk. Oh, yes. Look it up. A lot of that series is built on the claims that came out of the Montauk Project. Now, here is the thing. That time tunnel, is it a one-way thing? Oh, no. It goes both ways, my friend. It goes both ways. One time, there was an incident. There was an issue. They would send people out, and one time, something came back. Let me ride this time tunnel across this street here, and then I'll tell you all about it. R3, not a bad bike. So one time, one day as they were operating the time tunnel, ordinary Tuesday, something came back. Something unholy. And it got loose. And crap got crazy. It was a straight up monster. Got loose in the base. Just started freaking ripping people's heads off. And things got way, way out of hand. Now, like I said, this is his claims. This is not mine. If you want to read more about this, check out the book The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time. It actually spawned a whole series of books after that. Definitely worth a read. I will tell you, it is some wild stuff. It is not very, low-level conspiracy reading. This is high Baroque era stuff. Monsters from another dimension and time tunnels to Mars. That's some crazy stuff there. Now, I'll leave you with one thing. The connection between the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk Project. So, like I said, 1943, the United States Navy decided to try to cloak one of its destroyers, the USS Eldridge, using a high degree of electromagnetism. They succeeded, but they succeeded so well, the ship went into hyperspace. Now, some people are going to try to argue, oh, well, Montauk Project technology is built on, or is a continuation of the, the Philadelphia experiment technology. I say it's the other way around. In the book, Nichols pretty much lays out, that I think it was, that the Philadelphia experiment technology came from the technology at the Montauk Project. Okay, in the book, people travel back in time to that ship, and there things get really crazy because while in hyperspace, two men jump overboard, and they wind up in 1983 on the Montauk base. One of them is a guy named Al Bielek, that we'll talk about in a later episode when it's not so windy. Anyway, folks, this is Dallas Deluxe. Have yourself a crazy day. I'm having a crazy windy day. Stay safe, stay sane. Most of all, stay sanitary. And my goodness, if you go through a time tunnel to Mars, say hi, because I might be there. Good night.